Hello, and welcome back once again to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. I had to do a restart because I lost my blackboard. Couldn't figure out how to get back, so that's okay. Let's recreate what we have been doing in our working in the last few days. Let's recreate it by asking a question. Do you have a mind? What can you use your mind for? In other words, if you have a mind, you use it through thinking to do what? To use it well, wouldn't you have to reflect on the model of thinking? Realize that you are thinking, turn about with your thinking to see what thinking is. And if there's an activity of thinking, shouldn't it be based on some sort of model? The greater that you can see the model, the greater that isn't it true that the greater you can perfect your functioning based on that model? If you've got a mind and you're thinking, don't you want to do it well? Know what it is? Gain its excellence, gain its perfection? Do we do that by turning about to know the model of thinking, to know what thinking is, to know the mind, use the mind to know the mind, by turning around upon the model of mind? And in becoming most like the model, do we gain our excellence? Do we become more beautiful in our functioning as the copy reflects the model? Can we function in a more fair way? In fact, could we find a list of words that talk about kinds of excellences, all of which come from using the mind to know the mind? Is that really all we can do? What else is there? Now you might say, hang on a second, to say we have a mind implies that there is something that has mind. And if something has mind, it itself has to be prior to mind, higher than mind. Let's call it self for now. Yourself has your mind. So is there a different kind of even higher excellence that we can use the mind for? By turning around to know the self? In doing so, are we using ourself to know ourselves? Are we then turning back upon the model of self as well to see ourselves? So is that the two kinds of excellences that we can use thinking for? To use our thinking or mind to turn around and know the model of mind, and turn around to know the model of self, even prior to that, to make yourself reflect the true self, to make our thinking or mind reflect the true mind. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win.
No. Okay, go ahead, man.
Hang on a second, there is an issue. There are some human beings who don't use their mind in that way. Why not? If those are essentially the two things you can use mind for, what else is there? To do anything else, you have to first reject those two activities. Blocking you from your excellence and your fun and your beauty and your justice and all of those good qualities that come from turning upon the model. Can we make a model out of our reflection right now? How do we use thinking? Well, there has to be some sort of model upon which our thinking is based. Because it's not just me thinking, it's you thinking too. And we think in the same way. We use whole and part, we use the same ideas. We all use rational steps. There has to be a cause and effect, rational, logical chain that follow. It's the same kind of thing. Meaning there has to be some model behind it. Use our thinking or mind to turn about and gain the excellence of mind, the excellence of our thinking. Hang on a second. You might say also that there is some thing that we call self that's doing that. Would it also follow that we can use that same principle? The greater we use our thinking to reflect on the self, the greater our self will gain the excellence of that model and the joy and the fun. Make a list. The more beautiful we become, the more we reflect the model. The more ordered we become, the more we can use it in a good way. The more we can understand the truth and act in a true way. Can make a list of things that happen as a result of turning about upon the model of our thinking. Using the mind to turn about upon mind, or whatever it is, self that has mind. But there is another way of using mind. Cool. Well, there is a use of thinking that would cause human problems. Distract us from this activity, get us to do other things that ain't so fun, ain't so good, ain't so... Let's use fun in there, let's put fun in there. Fun. Joy. Whoops. I added fun and joy on that list. By the way, we're getting an interesting list of things that happen as a result of turning upon the model of mind. Excellence. But you can reject There are people, I've heard of them, who use their thinking to reject. Use their thinking to reject mind. And I've even heard there are people out there who use their mind to reject the model of self. They say things like the self is stupid, or doesn't exist, or small, or sinful, or evil. And there is no mind. We're all just parts. We're all just things, dust in space. There's no model of thinking. There's no model of excellence and order, and hey, by the way, beautifully excellent, ordered. Isn't that what justice is? So there is no actual objective model of justice. It's all just opinions. We're all just dust in space, and if a Nazi wants to run for president, that's just as good as someone who actually knows justice. Rejects the use of the mind to know the model of mind or the self. Therefore, is there only really 3 things you can do? Use your mind to reflect on the model of mind, or the nature or the model of self, to gain the excellence of either. Perfecting your thinking, allowing you to know the self and mind. Or the third thing, reject the existence of both. Isn't that interesting? By the way, those that do reject the reflection of the model, would that mean that they become less aware of their model? Becoming ignorant of the model? Could we say that's ignorance? By the way, the less connected to the model that their thinking is actually based on, would that make them the opposite of these? Less excellent, less beautiful? Make them less good or bad? Less true or false? Less fun, miserable? Less joyful or free or blocked? Add free up there, why not? Free. So there's 2 things we can really do: reflect on the mind, use the mind to reflect on the model of mind itself, which our thinking is a reflection of, or the self. Or we can have problems, be in ignorance, by simply rejecting the existence of a model of mind or a model of self. But you're still thinking when you're rejecting these things. You're still using your mind. You're just using it in a bad, false, miserable, blocked, terrible way. Is that an understanding of what ignorance is? Ignorance is a rejection of the model of mind or self, causing a blindness of both. Blind. But you're still thinking, even though you reject that there is principles and causes and parts or a model of thinking, you are still using words to reject it. You still are alive. You're working against your best interests. We could add things like harmful. You're still doing things, you're just doing harmful things. And we could add unjust things. Ugly things. Disordered things. Out of a rejection of the model, and a blindness to the model, and a block from your excellence. But if you're still thinking, there has to be still some sort of fake model that rejects itself. It has to be fake because it's denying its own existence. Some sort of fake or bad or false model upon which that thinking is based. So there is a kind of reflection upon that model. Just not aware of it. Just blind to it, just blocked from it, just miserable because of it. So there is a reflection of the model. A fake model. Therefore, this model and activity we can understand as ignorance. And if that's ignorance, what do you mean by model of mind or model of self? Oh, you think, right? Like, to ask that question, you've had to use words, right? And ideas. And these ideas aren't physical things. They have to exist somewhere. Like you're pointing to someone different from you. It implies self. There's you, yourself, and then you're saying you, not me, someone other than me. So someone other than me, what do other from self mean? Oh, that implies meaning. There is something important behind your words. They're not just physical words. And there's an order to what you're asking. Not only that, we both can participate in it for you to be able to communicate to me. So all of those parts, all of those aspects, all of those ideas, all of that order and all that structure that you're using in your thinking, we can bring together into a oneness and call it a model. And by the way, would you agree that the better you have an apprehension of that model in some way, the more ordered you can make your questions? There are some dummies who go, "What do you mean by, you mean, what you doing with your thinking about the models, them there, kid?" Okay, that's, I couldn't do a very good impression, but you get the idea. Like dumb people. They have a less of a functioning or thinking according to that model of structured, ordered reflection, using ideas that don't exist in the physical world, but applied to the physical world. You've never seen meaning walking down the street with a blue t-shirt on, but you can see meaningful things as an adjective. So the existence or the nouns of all of the adjectives that you use, we can call that the model. And it's also a model because it's universal. So the model has to be universal. Has to have some structure and order in it for you to use it. Use what? Oh, there has to be parts. But can we call them parts if they're not physical parts? Would it be better to call them parts or aspects? Because they're all interrelated. Like, what do you mean by the whole model? There's an idea of whole in there. But if it's a whole, would it stay the same as itself? So whole and same they're different things, but they're kind of related to each other. And by the way, the greater that we can reflect on the model, it allows for our excellence or goodness. If you have an idea in your mind when you create, there's your model, and then you create something. Then you look on your creation and you have to judge whether or not it was good. God looked upon his creation and said it was good. Does that mean the activity reflected or the creation reflected the model most accurately? Giving it a goodness? This is the model. And we can see people in ignorance who reject that model deny such a thing. There is no mind. I'm going to spend my life manipulating people to get profits. Yes, yes, yes. And I'm going to lie. Fuck the order. Fuck the truth of the model. I'm going to scam my way to the top. By the way, are they ignorant people? Do they do bad things? Are they miserable and cause misery? Therefore, the rejection of the universal model makes them stupid and dumb, and makes their functioning stupid and dumb. But have you noticed that people reject the mind and reject the self in different kinds of ways? There are some people who say there is no mind because we're all just parts. We're all just rocks in space. Or there is no mind because nothing exists. There's not even parts. There is no mind because God says so. And my priest says that God made hell for people like me who asks questions about the mind. And there are people who reject the mind that say, well, there is a mind, but only Jesus can know it. Or only people with PhDs can know the model of mind. In other words, there is some sort of fake model that can be different. That is the cause of the negative use of the mind that we can call ignorance. And as they function, they are reflecting on that model to use that model in some way. It might be a small amount of reflection, but there's still a fake model that rejects mind, rejects all of these principles, rejects, there's no excellence. Whatever I learned from childhood is just as true as anything. I can't get better. There's no justice. We should allow different political parties with all their dumb models and their ignorant thinking. Hang on a second, if there's a variety of models and we can trace where that comes back to from childhood, can we call this fake model? Belief? Is the fake model not a true model but something based on belief? Because none of those positions are right, but people believe them. Even in this short conversation, we've recognized that there are universal principles needed for thinking and conversation itself that have to have an existence outside of the physical world as nouns to have an effect as adjectives. So beliefs is the fake model, or belief is the fake model of bad, false, miserable, blocked, unjust, ugly, disordered, harmful thinking. And we can call that ignorance. Whereas, to use your thinking in a just way, good way, true way, fun way, free way, joyful way, that's also truth, true and good. Can we call that wisdom? The thinking based on the model, turning about to know the model, to gain the excellence of both. Is that wisdom? By the way, for there to be a model means that there has to be something as a whole, right? A true model or nature of the self or of mind. And mind can bring the parts together into a whole. Could we therefore say that ignorance is okay? Let's draw some circles. Make it a bit thicker. That's what she said.
Literally no one has ever experienced joy ever.
Oh my goodness.
But I want to be clear, I'm not AI.
I never said you were AI. We'd make two circles. If there is mind here, that we can know as wisdom. Oops. The thinking based upon the model. Are we looking at this circle as a whole and this circle as parts, and seeing how all of the parts come together in a whole in the model of mind. All of these parts that we talked about, that we distinguished when our friend asked, what do you mean by model? Well, we had to break them down into parts, didn't we? Or aspects. Aspects because they're all kind of interrelated. Because all of the parts or aspects, or this circle of parts, come together into a whole in the model. Whereas all of these different fake models or beliefs are all different parts. Your way of rejecting the model of mind and self is different from mine and my parents and my uncles and the guy who lives up in the street. Christians reject mind in a different way. Muslims reject mind in a different way. The establishment Democrats say there's no model of justice because everything is a matter of opinions and they let fascists take over. Whereas the right-wingers reject the model of justice because they say, well, it's my belief that there's no whole that affects everyone universally. One rule for the rich, one rule for the poor. Look at all the different ways people reject. By the way, we could therefore say that they're all parts. Parts that reject the whole. The cause of ignorance and human badness, false, miserable, injustice, ugliness, we can understand as being a part, or using our thinking as a part in rejection of the whole model of mind. But we can say more than whole and part, can't we? We could also say we're always different. Down here, this bottom circle, and we're not the same. We can never be functioning upon the same model if we reject the model. So another way of understanding human ignorance or problems or suffering or injustice, individually and collectively, is to be different in opposition from the same. To be a part in opposition or in denial or rejecting of the whole. What a curious way of using your mind. Contradictory because there is a kind of model you're still using. Even though you're always different from other people in your family, you kind of have the same way of being. Even though you're different from other Mormons, you kind of have a model of how you reject the self and mind. I'm not sure what the motivation is here. Are you proposing that these models are Platonic? No, I'm not putting any name on them. We're just reflecting on what is. This is what is, don't you? Hey, you have thinking, don't you? You've got thinking right here. Isn't that what you've got right now? Isn't that what you do? Isn't that all you really do is think? And what you desire is based on what you think is good? And what you go out into the world and seek is based on some plan that you've thought up? Based on your thinking of what's good and your thinking about how to go out and get it? If you're thinking, therefore, are you using these ideas? Not Plato, it's just what is. We could look at Plato and see how well he got to understand this model, or whether he had some beliefs from his culture or family or upbringing or religion that got in the way of seeing this. And we could compare how well he used his thinking in a good way compared to how well he used his thinking in a bad way. We could do that for Plato. We could do that for Socrates. We could do that for anybody. Your girlfriend? Your friends? Someone who say, hey, buy me some coffee at a coffee shop. And they're going to go, what? They'll say,
Hey man, wouldn't some kind of future where people have all their whatever basic needs met of shelter, all this crap, and they could do whatever the hell they want, wouldn't that be good? No, it wouldn't.
they'll say that because they're so mad that you got them to pay for the coffee. Say, no, it's worth it. Because I'm going to walk you through some steps of reasoning, and you're going to agree at every step because it's true. It's the truth. This kind of reflection, and at every step you can agree because it's ordered. They're ordered steps. And I know it's going to work because these ordered steps are universal. It's the same structure and order. And if we go through it, you're going to get some goodness. And if you carry this conversation in mind, you'll gain some excellence. And I can be confident about it because it's the truth. Because all of these steps of reflection that I'm doing over coffee that you paid for,
I think it's so awesome.
are always true because they're the model of thinking. And if you get in a time machine, you can have this conversation with Plato if you wanted to. You better make sure that he knows how to transfer his ancient Greek money into dollars so you can buy the coffee. And at any stage along this use of thinking, he might get he might follow along for a while, because here's the thing, human beings don't start with this kind of awareness. We have to perfect our thinking by reflecting on the model of mind. But when we're babies, we don't. Our model is our fake model. Ever noticed that all other parents other than yours are stupid, but think they know everything, and all their kids blindly follow along? Except for yours. So the first model we get isn't true excellence, beauty, or justice, or goodness, but the physical appearance. So we could say, well, the true model of mind is non-physical, because none of these terms are physical. They apply to the physical world, but then they have scope over the physical world. But none of these terms are physical things. But you know what is physical? Appearances. Appearances. I'm not sure that thinking should be thought about as a deliberate action, necessarily goal-based, and these are entirely right. So maybe there are two kinds of thinking. Thinking, reasoned reflection, where you yourself use your mind to reflect on your goals, whether or not you should be seeking the model of thinking, as we're doing today, whether or not you should be listening to this jabroni on a stream, or doing something else. But then there are people who don't think for themselves, but whether they're aware of it or not, they're still reflecting on a model. It's just a fake model. A fake model. So what would you call those people who don't take charge of their own use of mind? What would you call that? And have that fake model that we can see, because look at what we've done here. We've seen that the nature of ignorance is a fake model based on physical appearances. Have you ever physically seen a hole? When I hold up this chicken, do you see the whole of the chicken? Or do you just see his beak and its eye, this eye and this wing? You don't see his little tail. You don't see his back. You don't see his butt.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
Chicken butt.
Whore.
You use your mind to infer from physical appearances the existence of a whole chicken. Wouldn't you say? Now, you can have this conversation with your friend over coffee, but we're on chat, so there's, you know, a bit of a delay and stuff. But you don't ever see with physical you only see the parts. Your mind infers the whole chicken. And look, here's his butt. Here's his butt.
If you're experiencing a mental health episode, we don't want to have to see that.
Sorry. My bad. I'm excited about chicken butt. What does that mean? Well, does that mean that those, what do we call them? That don't take use of their mind? Zombies? Mindless? Savages? Barbarians? Zombies is kind of nice. Because they're still thinking, they're just, like you say, not deliberately seeking their goals. They're mindlessly seeking goal. Braid, braid, braid. They're not seeking to perfect their use of language and guided activity. They're just trying to eat brains. They always will, they never will change. Should we call them zombies? By the way, ever notice that Muslim children have Muslim parents? Ever notice that Mormon children are born into a Mormon house? Ever notice these things? Ever notice that when we're young, just as we see the physical parts of the chicken and we infer with our mind a model of the whole, when our parents seemed like they were wise, here's wisdom up here, but we're just pretending because they've probably never had this kind of conversation in their lives. Even if they have, human beings can still be, under certain conditions, their problem or their block will come up where they will imitate the appearance. And so as they imitate whatever fake model they got in their upbringing, to you as a kid, you see the parts of physical appearances and you infer the whole or the model. That's the fake model that we call the origin of belief and ignorance and human problems. Human problems. And what is it? It's a functioning that is a part that rejects the whole model of mind, or that is different than everyone else, all other clans, all other families, all other religions, all other in-groups, even different from all the people in your family, because they all have their own different beliefs. But a use of thinking to reject the model of mind and self. Part in opposition to the whole. Different in opposition to same. We could add more words to these. We could say it's a manyness. This circle here is a manyness, but a many can be brought into a whole or a oneness if the many can participate in a one. A many into a oneness, or a many, this part of the Venn diagram here, this bit in the middle, this section here, is the part of the manyness that also participates in one and many. They're a pair. Also, this model of the whole of mind is the section of whole that has all of the parts. All of these parts, all of this whole model is a collection of parts we're bringing into a model that's a whole. That's wisdom. That's mind. That's the only thing you can use what you're thinking for. And it brings about excellence and goodness and truth. We did say there's one other use of thinking. You could use your thinking to say, hang on a second. That's interesting. That's interesting. That's very interesting. But just as we have ignorance down here, which is the part that's rejecting the whole, keeping it apart, keeping it down here, keeping us in our problems, making us fight against our own benefit, the whole, excellence, truth, goodness. And we have wisdom, which is the whole of all parts, which is nothing other than this model we've written on the board. And it's not an opinion. We've come to it step by step in agreement. That's why your friend bought coffee.
4 trillion people are still going to listen to this.
And 4 trillion people are going to listen to this.
Okay, go ahead.
And we can
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hey.
Hey.
But I want to be clear, I'm not AI.
I didn't. Yeah. I guess I'm confused. What are you getting at with this? I may have joined later, so I'm not sure what the main theme of the discussion is. Oh, it's what is the only thing we can ever do? Like, you've got your thinking, right? That's what you do. And we can say the thinking is the use of mind. Hey, welcome, Sas. So what do you do with it? Like, you're here. You've awakened in. Is there a video game that you're interested in? Let's say Dark Souls. You wake up in Dark Souls. Isn't the first question you ask, what do I do? What can I do? Like, what buttons can I press? And what should I do? Like, how do I win the game? That's this. You have thinking. What can you do with it? Well, if you've got thinking, then it must be based on something, a model that allows you to. This is the model of dialectics. It may be. It may end up being that. All I'm doing is wondering, what is it that we can do? Like, what's the only thing we can actually do with our character in this game? If we've got thinking, if that's everything we do is, we seek our goodness, but we have to think about what's good. Like, is it good for me to eat the sandwich that's got the mold on it? Or is it good for me to eat the other sandwich? And we have to use our thinking to decide how to reach that good. So we're using thinking at all is even motivating everything else. We're just thinkers. Reason. But isn't there a model that thinking is based on? And if our thinking is like that uses these tools of thinking, like we think like we have to order our conversation. People like crackheads who they can't order it past to present and cause and effect. They go nuts and they have a terrible time. So there's some sort of order in thinking, and there are certain things you use, like you think about what's your excellence, you think about what's your good, you want to reach truth. But when you think about things, you think about this chicken, but you don't look at the parts of the chicken. You take the parts of the chicken and you think about it as a whole chicken. You infer the whole. So parts and whole are what you use. Everything you've thought about is this chicken is the same as What do I call this stuffy? I forgot what I call her. Chicken is different from Phoenix Stuffy because it's yellow, but it's the same because they're stuffies. Everything is the same and different. It's albeit a bit judgmental. Let's not be rude to crackheads. They're addicts and can't emotionally regulate their thoughts. Yeah, we're judging. That's thinking. We judge. We judge. That's what thinking is, judgments. We judge that this chicken is the same as this stuffy, but it's also, we judge that it's different. We judge that the car coming down the street is going at a speed that allows us to cross the road safely. We judge. What's wrong with judging? Yeah, plushie Venn diagram. There's a part of this plushie that's the same, and it's a part that's different. When you say don't judge, I think what you mean is don't judge in terms of blame, shame, punishment. Because those are the things that prevent them from judging why their thinking is causing problems. What model has their thinking been based on that's made them act in a negative way? We encourage judgment. The thing that gets in the way of the use of thinking is to reject the mind or reject the self. In fact, what we've been saying is there's really only two things you can do. You can use thinking to reflect on the model of thinking. And if the closer you reflect on the model, the more you get all those wonderful words: excellence, goodness, joy, fun, freedom. Because the more your thinking reflects the model. But there's another thing you can do. You can use your thinking to reject the model. There is no model. There is no truth. Everything is opinions. Sexism is fine. Racism is fine. That's just an opinion. It's equally valid. That's it, isn't it? Let me catch up with chat. With the game scenario, wouldn't I have some prior knowledge of the game? Not in Dark Souls. You don't. You're just thrown into the game. When you're born, do you know where you came from? Where you're going? The three big questions we need to ask, that's taboo to ask in our culture: where you came from, where you're going, and therefore, what are you supposed to be doing here? We would be aware of limitations, mechanics and such. That doesn't seem to be the case with our thinking. Right. You're right. So a lot of games, they do give you an instruction booklet. Dark Souls, you're on your own. Some games are like that. In fact, a lot of video games are like you're kind of thrown in, but because if you've ever seen someone who's never played video games before, there's a lot of things that we take for granted. Like red barrels explode and, go down the hallway if there's only there's a game mechanics that guide you in a certain direction. That's what we're doing. We're in Dark Souls here. We've got thinking, and we're saying, well, what can we do with it? And it seems like we've got two options. Use our thinking to revert on the model of thinking, which will allow us to think better. And as thinking is non-physical, it seems to be of a higher scope or a higher significance than you can think about things, meaning it's greater than physical, and it brings about our excellence. brings about a learning. And if it's a learning that's non-physical but applies to everything physical, it's a kind of learning you can take with you after you die. So here's our question: where do we come from? As you say with the video game, where are we going? If we're here to do something, it has to be something that we can take with us in our next level. It has to be something non-physical in principle. Thinking, the model of thinking. But you're right, we all make judgments, and judgments calls on things based off perceptions and observations and how they appeal to morals and where they go from there. That seems to be what the other thing is. You can use your thinking and judgments based on a model of truth, or those that reject such a thing can use their thinking based on a false model that we call belief. And beliefs are based on appearances in the physical world. Physical appearances. I am racist because my father appeared wise. He appeared to know the model of truth. He appeared to know the model of truth and what was good. And he knew the whole. And he was excellent. And he was loving. And he was caring. When he looked at me and he gave me a look and he said, "Son, don't you trust women?"
Unbelievable sluts these days.
He appeared to have the model. He appeared to have all those things. Physical appearances. Giving us a fake model that our thinking is actually reflecting upon here. What we could call ignorance. Ignorance. The cause of our problems, a rejection of the model of mind based on appearances. By the way, as we're saying, you don't see the whole, you infer it with your mind. Therefore, if your model is based on physical appearances, you never ever see the model, you infer it. But if you are using your thinking or mind to turn around upon the mind, you don't have to infer anything. You can directly apprehend it. That's called wisdom. To directly apprehend the model with your mind by using your thinking to reflect upon the model to gain truth, goodness, wholeness, excellence, lovingness, caringness, wisdom. To infer the model based on physical appearances, giving you a fake model that causes you to reject that eternal, so we can add other words in, eternal, universal model, causing the opposite of these things because it's a fake model, ignorance, which is the cause of human problems. You infer that, you never see it. So these are the two things you can do. Human problems. So human problems, therefore, is nothing other than the rejection of the model of mind, which is a contradiction or a hypocrisy because you're still using a model. It's just a model called belief based on an inference of the whole model, based on physical appearances, usually from your parent when you were very young and you didn't know any better. And we can describe the aspects of human problems as all of the aspects of the true model, but fake. Human problems is a not true, but fake model. It's not good, it's the cause of badness, war, suffering, division, conflict within yourself and within the world. It's not the whole, but it keeps you separated as parts. It's not excellence. Well, can we break it down? What are the limitations that belief create? Well, we've got it as one. The fundamental limitation of belief is you reject the model, which is the only real thing you can do. All you can really do with thinking is turn about and know what thinking is, bringing about the excellence of your thinking. You're either doing that or you're in a problem. And the irony of problems is you're a hypocrite because you are reflecting on a model, because the way you reject mind is the different from the family next door. They reject mind because Jesus says so. The guy across the street rejects mind because they believe that there is no mind. We are materialists. We are scientists in this house, and there's only physical things. There are only parts, no whole. So we can draw a line around these bottom ones and say, hang on a second. The section of parts that is not whole, so know this circle, this part of the Venn diagram, materialists. Or you can reject it in a different way. Notice, different. They're all different. There is no whole because we are just stupid. We can't know the mind of God. We can't know enlightenment. That's for Jesus, or that's for Moses, or that's for Buddhist monks only. See how there is, hey, some people that even reject the whole thing. Again, it's a hypocrisy because they're still using words which are a part, and they're still using sentences which bring the parts into the whole. It's all hypocrisy. It doesn't stand up to any kind of reflection, belief, or the rejection of the model. So you can say we're a different, or we're all a manyness. So this Venn diagram, you can call these two circles whole and part, same and different, one and many, which is fascinating because those are the building blocks of thinking. Everything you've seen is a part in a whole, or you see the parts and you infer the whole with your thinking. You see the manyness and you bring it together into a one and say chicken, and say chicken with your mind or thinking. You see many chickens in your physical experience, but you use your thinking to bring it to a manyness to a one by saying, that's a chicken. They're all chicken. So in other words, our thinking is the use here that can bring the parts together into a whole. You do it when you see a chicken and you say that's a chicken. There was a part where there was a time when you were a kid where you couldn't distinguish chickens from ducks, but now you can, and you'll see a new chicken, you'll see a manyness of chickens, and you'll say that's a chicken because you've brought the parts together in your mind or thinking into a one. Therefore, this middle section here, so we can imagine the Venn diagram like that, this middle section of whole and part is thinking. And even if you reject this, there is no models, it's all just belief. By the way, did we say that there are many different kinds of ways of rejecting mind? meaning you have some model that you're using. So even when you reject a model of mind, you're still using it. You're rejecting it the same way your parents did, or your preacher did, or your minister did, or your imam did, or your rabbi did, or your pastor did, or your mummy and daddy did. It doesn't hold up to any kind of reasoned, structured, ordered reflection. It doesn't stand up to structure, order, reflection. Belief doesn't stand up to thinking, which is why belief has to reject thinking. Ever been to church and asked a question? Ever been in a classroom and challenged a fundamental belief of your teacher? Ever been at home and challenged something your daddy or mummy dearly believes? What do they always say? Reject thinking. Shut up. Punishment. Chastising. There is no thinking. Thinking is the devil. Or reject the self. So, yes, and that way beliefs keep us from excellency, because excellency is to use our thinking to reflect on the model of our thinking. That's the only thing we can do. That's all it is. That's all thinking is. A reflection or a rejection of the model, while zombie-like reflecting on I keep dropping the chicken. Chicken butt.
So, like, not only have you been wrong on like 3 or 4 different things at once, which is already offensive enough, but you did it in the most annoying way.
Sorry. Chicken booty.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
What if I like being an ignorant potato? Ah. Why would we desire that which brings about our suffering? Why would we desire that which brings about our blocks, our badness, our falseness, our miserableness, our ugliness, our injustice? Why would we be, what's the word for that? Seeking or blind allegiance to what does harm to others and ourselves? Sadism. Why are we sadistic as human beings? Why does the bully smile when he knows he's doing the bad thing to the other person, while imitating the same injustice his daddy does to him? Why do the rich billionaires and the politicians and stuff, when they could solve world hunger, why are they taking away food from children? Why are they taking away healthcare? Why are they bombing children? Why are they doing other terrible things to other people? Easy. That's easy. Human problems is just the rejection of the use of thinking properly to reflect on its model, which is universal, because they are at the same time reflecting on their fake model, making them hypocrites. A model based on physical appearances. I'm about to find a potato peeler. What is true excellency? Because I'm about to peel my potato self. It seems to be. By the way, are you more excellent in your sculpting if your activity reflects the model that you're making a sculpture of? Seems to be using your mind properly to do the only thing we can do, reflect on the model. Excellency is mind dependent. Are you serious? What else is there? Like, literally, what else do you have? What do you do? Aren't you mind? Isn't that what you use to think? like if you cut off a finger, you're not less of yourself, right? You can't do anything without some sort of awareness or thinking. I'm puzzled by your question. What else could excellency be? How do you be an excellent painter without using your mind? How do you do anything? Sorry, I thought that was sus asking that question. Sorry, Cosmic, if that was a bit sus is a long time viewer. I thought that was Sus's question, so that's why I was so puzzled by her question. Yeah. Well, no. What would you say? Would you say excellence requires you to use your mind excellently? Sorry. Take all of those questions. Ask them as questions. I think I'm starting to follow. Oh, good for you. Welcome on in. I'ma go lurk. Spam.
And this is spam.
Spam. Ban spam. Ban.
But that's funny. It's like the whole business model is like, hey, we can trick the platforms, and then hopefully we can trick people into thinking that these are real people to do like
Go away, spam.
weird business, because it's like, you know, a bunch of stupid little robots trying to spam everybody to sell crap.
I get spam every day. I guess I'm inclined to agree with you. Right. By the way, I didn't have to appear like I spoke for God, or appear like I'm so clever because I have all of the money like Elon Musk. I didn't even have to appeal to your personal beliefs like Donald Trump or Netanyahu for you to be inclined to agree. All we did was just go through, use our thinking. Whoops. All we did, wouldn't you agree, is use our thinking to reflect on what thinking is. Are we demonstrating the very thing we are defining? All of these terms aren't physical. We didn't have to appeal to Jeebus or Allah or Elon Musk or the founding fathers. We didn't have to appeal to any person or physical thing. We can explain all of their problems because that's the excellence of the model. It has scope over all of the things. Or mind has scope over all we do. So on the board we have a definition of what all excellence is. But not just us, but any peer. We could go back in time and talk to Plato. Talk to Elon Musk if he's open to conversation. But any galaxy, any planet, any reincarnation, any time period. Because that's what it means to be a model. Supermodel. And we've understood the nature of human problems. So as Sas was saying, make sure you're not judging as an excuse to inflict shame or blame, or the next step that follows, punishment, the infliction of suffering that distracts from this kind of reflection on the model, because suffering takes your attention away from the mind and takes it to your physical. It takes a reflection away from yourself and on others. All you do is, how can I physically escape the physical attention of physical fucking tyrants who punish me? That's all punishment does. That's the sentiment by Sus saying, no judgment for blame or shame or punishment ever gets in the way of doing this. Gets in the way of understanding the only way we can use our mind, in principle, to reflect on the model. Even the rejection of the model is still a reflection on whatever way you reject your model. Is it because you think nothing exists? Is it because you think materialism? There's only physical thing. There is no mind. It's just chemicals, just brain chemistry. Is it because God will send you to hell? That's a different belief. These are all different beliefs. thinking based on a false model of belief compared to thinking based on a reflection on the true eternal model, using all of these terms, bringing them together into a whole. Wisdom and ignorance. The excellence, the only thing we can do with excellence, and our problems. We can unify it in two terms. Human problems, these things, which is just the opposite of those things, is nothing other than the part of reality. For there to be whole and parts, there have to be two different things. If there was for there to be the everything, as we're saying, this is a model, which means everything you've seen is a whole and part. Everything you've experienced is a whole and part. Everything you've thinking is a whole and part. Which means they're two different ideas, but they're connected. We can bring them together as a whole of all parts in our model, and our excellence of thinking or functioning and thinking. But that means in principle, there has to be something that's a part that's not whole. Otherwise, they wouldn't be two different ideas that can connect, but they're different. Which means for there to be creation, for there to be creation, for there to be experience, for there to be cognition or perception, for there to be thinking, we need these two ideas. But also we need the idea of same and different. For there to be something having an experience, it has to be different from itself. For there to be wholes and parts which are needed, we need part to be different from whole. But we need each of them to themselves stay the same. We're getting a list of duads or pairs that have to exist for creation, experience, perception, and thinking. While I'm not a materialist, I don't think materialists necessarily reject the mind or self under this model, but I may be wrong. The definition of materialism is to say we are only material, physical parts. They reject the mind. They reject wisdom. They use words like, it's all woo-woo, or fooey, or mystic garbage, astrology nonsense. There can't be a universal model. Everything is a matter of perception. And if you can't put it in a test tube, you can't put mind in a test tube because test tubes are physical, they are lesser. So we could even say lesser. You need the idea of lesser. Parts are lesser than greater. Hey, there is no such thing as mind or beauty. It's just physical evolution. Blah, 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 blah. There are variations like reductionism. Everything mind or beautiful, all of those excellences that we love and we seek, all of this stuff. Nah, it's not real. There's no beauty. A beautiful Rembrandt is just $5 worth of paint on a $10 canvas. That's reduction, reducing everything higher or greater to its lesser. That's, by the way, that's not philosophy, that's Aristotle. That's our academic tradition of materialism that we can trace back to Aristotle's thinking. But we don't have to think about that now because we're just looking at the ideas themselves. But can you see how everything for there to be creation, for there to be experience, there has to be whole and part. But for there to be whole and part, there have to be two different things. Otherwise, if they're not different, then we would have the part overlapping the whole. They would be one. They wouldn't be two different ideas. We wouldn't have two-ness, or we wouldn't have many. We would just have one. Here's another pair, one and many. So there has to be something that's a part. And by the way, if the part is the lesser, wouldn't it be inclined to join with the greater? If you had a choice to make a video game character who has a lesser number of stats or a greater, wouldn't you always pick the greater? Especially if the lesser comes with problems or false or ugliness or blocked. Wouldn't you want what makes you happy and joyful? And therefore, human problems has to reject the greater. Belief in principle, the false model, the fake model that ignorance is based on, has to reject what is good and beneficial. That's the twist. Human beings, so long as they do not reflect on their fake model of belief that their thinking is based on, will always act against their own self-interests. But we are saying, no, that's not a blame game. That has to happen. Otherwise, if this is a model, if this is a model, it doesn't have to only apply to, because it's a model, it has to apply to the whole of all the parts. That's what a model means. Which means it's not just, this isn't just the model for creation, experience, perception, thinking. It also is the model for cognitive development. The stages of cognitive thinking, how we make use of our thinking as we develop. If it didn't account for that, it would be a pretty poor model. Our cognitive develop as we evolve, evolution. Also our spiritual growth, which is nothing other than soul or mind. Growth. So not only have we understood fundamentally the nature of human problems, which is nothing other than the rejection of the only rational, sensible, reasonable use of the mind to think upon the model, the rejection of that, while also at the same time unknowingly reflecting on the own model that gives your own particular flavor of that, which is based on you yourself deriving, inferring your own fake model based on physical appearances. That's called belief. That's called ignorance. That's the cause of all your problems. Everyone, for always. A rejection on the only thing we're supposed to be doing, we can be doing, really. But we're also saying it has to exist. Not always, but as a stage in cognitive development, evolution, or spiritual growth, there has to be a section of the part, or the lesser, or the different, let's move same up here, that is repulsed from or keeps it existing as the lesser without moving into the greater. So in principle, belief has to be opposed to goodness and benefit. So any political movement based on belief, the right wing, that's all they do is belief. They will only ever do harm. In principle, any individual who says, I'm a strong believer, they will only ever do harm. In principle. Because in principle, this is the model, it will always reject the whole, giving you a cognitive or thinking or evolution or spiritual stage of development of part, the section of part in the Venn diagram that's not in conjunction, in unity with the whole, which is necessary for creation itself. So as Sus mentioned, it can't be a blame game. Yes, all belief is the cause of human suffering. Anyone who's glanced at a history book can see that. Oh, what? You've done genocide? We are doing a genocide in the name of Jewish belief? In Palestine right now? Oh, fancy that. The ICE Gestapo police are murdering and torturing and enslaving people in the name of racist beliefs? That's only ever doing harm? Fancy that. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed that the cognitive function or stage of evolution of belief that has to exist will always be in opposition to benefit? Always. Who would have guessed? We would have guessed. It's not a guess. This is always going to be true. But can we understand things about the mind and self through physical mediums, though? I'm not inclined to agree that the mind or self is entirely physical in a reductive sense, but physicality does play an important role to them. Yes, that's important. You don't start with an apprehension of the model. You start as a baby looking through your physical perceptions. So here we have the physical world of appearance, where we infer our, by the way, seeing as we infer the whole, that's important because you can't blame anyone else. Yes, your parents played a key role. And yes, the conditions were extremely difficult for you to ever talk back. They could have ended your life. And yes, the societal preconditions, you're stuck in a fucking box with these people pretending to be wise. It's sick. Played an important part. Yes, absolutely. And yes, it was a solution to stay alive within those that terrible environment. Yes. But still, you inferred it, meaning you have the power to reflect on your unsuspected belief, the false model that rejects the true nature of mind, the true self, and gives you a false idea of mind, that it's bad or impossible, and a diminished view of yourself, your mask, your negative self-talk. Because you did that, you have the power to undo it. But you're right. You can't be blamed equally, but we can understand the causes and principles. Equally so, as we've understood the causes and principles for ignorance here, putting an end to all blame, shame, punishment, violence on the planet, on any planet, so long as, I get all the views.
I think it's awesome. But I want to be clear, I'm not AI, so I don't know. Chimps. A chimp kissed a fox once, I think. I do enjoy that.
Yeah, see, we get all the views. I don't know. I need to find a better button. So long as we reflect on this, we can put an end to all suffering. But also we can understand not just ignorance, but wisdom. Notice all of these nouns begin as adjectives. For you to say, hang on a second, beauty exists as an idea or principle. I'm glad I stopped in. I have to get going. This has been an interesting discussion. Oh, well, you can follow on Twitch and YouTube. You can even join the Discord. There's a link to the PDF below. So you can, if you're on the Discord, you'll get a notification when we go live. You can, yeah, well, thank you. You can share your questions whenever you're around. Thank you for stopping in. But you're right, yes. Really quickly, yes, you see physical appearances, and just as you derived a fake model in belief, you can also infer the true model by saying, hang on a second, if there's a beautiful puppy, a beautiful streamer, a beautiful video game, there must be something that causes the manyness, must be a one that causes the manyness. What is beauty itself? That's what we've been talking about. That's the use of the mind. So you start there. You start with the physical and you realize, holy crap, there must be a model. Yeah. So even physical appearances and ignorance has a place within our learning or our cognitive development, evolution, and spiritual growth. That's right. We are understanding what role it plays. It shouldn't be in charge, of course. I'm back. So, there's only really one thing we can do with our mind. Revert upon the model of the excellence of mind. As we've been doing in this very conversation. Did we benefit? Did we get any goodness? Did we end up ordering things? Did we order all human problems? All political and religious problems? All individual problems? Did we order it? Is that going to be good for us to understand the nature of all human problems forever, for always? Is it true? Was it fun to do? Can we be more free of our problems having done this? Is that a kind of excellence? Are we beautifying our model and our soul? Can we in fact beautify the world by removing all punishment, blame, shame, all of the things that justify violence, which is used to oppress the mind? There you go. Hang on a second. Wait one gosh darn minute. Here we have these physical appearances in mind. Here. Wisdom and ignorance, sure. But shouldn't there be a part of the whole, or the greater, or the same, or the one that's not a part of, if ignorance is down here and wisdom is in the middle, what the heck is up here? Now, I'm going to borrow Socrates' words because we don't have a word for this. Our culture being, down here, barely has an understanding of the mind at all. So we don't have a word for wisdom. We use the knowing of the model we call knowledge sometimes, but that's not different from people who say, well, I know how to fly a plane. It's the same word. So we borrowed the Greek word knowing the model as nous. Reflecting upon the model, understanding, that's not dianoia. So let's borrow Socrates' words. Well, this is wisdom, or Sophia. And as our friend says, the best use of our physical appearance is to learn about the model. That's called mathesis in the Greek. To make your way up through learning, philomathesis, love of learning. This middle section, wisdom, Sophia, philosophy, philosophia, philosophy is there. The word for this one, Socrates calls phronesis. And the upgraded study, philophronesis. Why is it meaningful? Well, here's another thing. We've talked about this being the greater, the lesser. The whole, the part, the same, the different. There's one more word that sits atop all of them. Self and other. By the way, before you even distinguish wholes and parts, greater and lesser, same and different, like and unlike, do you first distinguish, that's not me? I'm hungry. I'm not going to feed the kitten. I'm going to feed me. That's other than the self. I spilt my juice. Good thing I'm not spilling myself.
Literally no one has ever experienced joy ever.
Is that true?
That's anti-feminist in some way.
In some way, I think it is.
Chimps. A chimp kissed a fox once, I think. I do enjoy that.
Okay. Self and other. In chat, somebody said, hang on a second. By looking at what do we use our mind for, asking this question, is this the model of dialectics? What's dialectic? Dialectic is the use of our thinking according to a structure or order of parts that's universally applied, that will reach the truth of whatever you're exploring, which will bring about your goodness and excellence. And as you master it, you can have fun with it and be joyful and free with it, allowing you to function in a just way. Seems to be that very one thing we've been talking about. The dialectic. The use of thinking to reflect upon the model of thinking and use it to have fun excellently. What's the dialectic? It's the use of these two things, self and other. Self, the use of self and other. This little diagram we have not only accounts for human problems and ignorance, not only explains the nature of wisdom, also all of our excellences that we want. It's also the model for thinking itself. Anything you say, hey, let's talk about beauty. Let's talk about beauty, baby.
Talking about a bunch of slop.
Let's talk about a bunch of slop.
Wow. Oh boy, that is a little weird.
It's a little weird.
You've been a bad little girl and you're
You've
getting
been
a vigorous spanking
goodness.
right now.
It's
my
sad.
goodness.
And I'm sad for you.
Okay. All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Let's talk about beauty. To understand what beauty is, wouldn't we want to talk about beauty itself first? As a whole? Describe what it is? By the way, to fully understand what beauty is, wouldn't we have to compare it to some sort of other? How is beauty different from justice? Hey, they're both perfectly ordered, but they're different things. There's a perfect ordering in justice and in beauty, but what's different? Or how is beauty different from harmony? How about this? How does beauty itself relate to you or your soul? Does beauty inspire your soul? So there's this middle crossover line where it functions, affecting your soul. But as a result of that, so you can say, how does beauty itself, talk about it in relation to itself. Now talk about how it relates to others, to another. Here, does it inspire you? Does it get you off your butt to do this kind of reflection? I mean, you can still see it on your butt because I'm sitting down. Can we talk about how you, having been affected, relate to others? Just so we cover all the bases. Can't you use other against other if you're just using two terms? Just as we looked at itself in relation to itself, other in relation to others, or other others. And finally, don't we have to return? Isn't the whole point of this reflection to return upon the model and cause? How do others then, having been affected by beauty in the ways we've described here and here, because you can, as a soul, have coffee with your friends and get them into philosophy, true philosophy, just reasoning about the model, using the mind to know the model of mind, that's it. How do you then get back into beauty? Do you and your friends get interested in the model of beauty? Other back to self. That's the dialectic. That's the use of thinking to explore anything. And because beauty itself, creation itself, experience itself, part, whole, lesser, itself, therefore we can say that these are the highest terms. It has scope over all the others, just as the model has scope over all the parts. So in other words, when we ask the question, what is the one here that's not many? Or what's the whole that's not parts? What's the whole that's not touched? Because there's a whole that is touched by parts. There's a one that is touched by many, we call oneness. There is a good that is touched by, well, that brings the bad into a goodness. But what's the one? Or the true or the good? And as all of these other terms, one, whole, greater, same, are derivatives or less than, or lesser than the greater idea of self, we're really asking the question, how can we use our language in the highest possible way, our thinking in the highest possible way, to describe or know the model of self here, which is nothing other than the one that's not many, the whole that's not parts, the greater that's not lesser, the self that's not other, not something other from yourself. What is the self? Knowing self. Now, knowing is in brackets because normally when we talk about knowing the model, we talk about this. But it's a kind of knowing of the self that Socrates calls phronesis. Philophronesis. So we've got two things we can really do. you can use your mind you've got a mind. The only thing that really makes sense is to use your thinking or your mind to revert on the model to know mind itself, to bring all those wonderful qualities and the excellence, to get excellence, to be your excellence. We also have physical appearances. Which is a kind of distorted thinking that rejects anything higher. That is turning apart on its distorted model which we call belief. So we don't want to do that, so let's ignore that. But there seems to be another thing we can do with our thinking. Use our thinking to look at that one that's not many, whole that's not parts, self that's not other. To know the model or the nature or the knowing. Now these are all inverted commas because it's going to be very different from this kind of knowing and way, way, way different from what 99% of us do 99% of the time, this kind of thinking. Self. Those are the two things we can do. Use our thinking to know the mind, or the model of thinking, or use our thinking to know its model, or a higher model or greater model, the self that has mind. And if the self, if the mind is the creation of the self or the shadow of the self, then we could say, yeah, it is the model of mind. If self's first creation has to, if your creation always reflects some sort of model, and the first creation of the whole that's not parts, the self, before it emerges into difference, is to create difference, or to emerge difference from self, or other from self. In other words, if this one thing we can do with thinking is to use our mind to know our mind for our excellence, we could also look at the model of it, the self. So while technically belief rejects your use of mind, don't ask questions. You can't know the mind of God. You can't know what happens when you die. You can't know the meaning of life. and materialists. You can't have a universal paradigm for all politicians. You can't have a universal paradigm for all spirituality. There is no consciousness. There is no mind. There is no reality. There is no fundamental nouns that are cause of adjectives. There is no fundamental cause and effect that goes through reality. That's all woo-woo and phooey. And look how clever and smug I am as I reject that like my parents rejected my quest. This rejection of mind also has an underlying second rejection of the self. Rejects mind or rejects the whole, which implies also a rejection of the self. So we can see underlying our false beliefs is a false belief or false perception of reality or the model, or a negative false. There's a negative false belief about reality that causes us to reject it, either in this distorted thinking, which is based on an underlying belief. And there is a even more fundamental negative, false, harmful, all of those opposites of those monads, excellence, justice, goodness, fairness, fun, miserable, blocked, limited, suffering, bad, false, negative, false belief. From a belief and also an image of self, which is the character that stars in your tangents, your daydreams, your night dreams, that makes any negative self-talk, any rejection of your actual excellence or goals, any rejection of your knowing of the self, makes it believable because, yeah, I'm just a small being. Anything that says you are a small being or a bad noodle. I'm just a small being. I can't do it. I'm a bad noodle. I deserve to be miserable. I'm a sinner. I'm a heathen. I'm a woman. I'm an immigrant. I deserve blah 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 blah. I'm a dummy. Small bean. Bad noodle. False, negative belief about yourself that functions to reject the self, which is an underlying rejection of mind and your one activity to know the model and a second activity. So there's only really two things we can be doing. That's it. And all of these terms that have come to light on their own by this reflection allows us to do just that. All of these terms for our goodnesses, we could say they are monads or onenesses. All of these onenesses, excellence, beauty, justice, allow us to understand the model, and which is the model of the higher model. All of these duads, whole, part, same, different, self, other, one, many. So we can account for all problems as with those duads as the part of the duad that's not touching the whole, that's miserable. So that's the explanation or understanding of human problems. the description of them are those positive terms: distorted, badness, false, miserable, blocked, blind, harmful. And there's one more set of terms we can say. This is the lesser, the part that's not whole. This is the greater, the whole of all parts. And this is the ultimate. So we've got a triad of terms. So we've got a bunch of ones. When the ones are applied to the greater, we have our excellence, the way we should be using our thinking. When the ones are applied to the lesser, we have our badnesses. When the ones are applied to the ultimate, we have our ultimate excellence. So we have our ones applied to those threes, and to understand what those threes, three kinds of oneses are, we have the twos: whole and part, same and different. So in other words, we can be reflecting on what's the whole of all parts. What's the oneness of all manyness? What's the model of justice or beauty? What am I using when I'm thinking? Right now I'm thinking, what's going on? There are parts that are being used, but it's being used in a certain way. And if it follows an order of parts, it can be successful. So parts using a structured order of parts can be successful. And that success is when I bring all those parts into a unity. And that allows me to be happy and free and have excellence of mind and reach my goals better and stuff like that. All I have to do is recognize where it is using that triad term: lesser, greater, ultimate, or false, truth, true itself, or the model of true. Make a list of all those excellences that I like and apply them to the truth or the true. But I guess we could say there's a third thing we can do. We could use our thinking according to that model and go all the way back down to understand our ignorance, our suffering. As we've done here, we've understood the nature of all human ignorance and suffering and why it has to have an existence, and it has to be in repulsion to what's good. So the most ignorant are going to be fighting the hardest against thinking, against intelligence, against care. That's why the fascists are so cruel. And by the way, the stupidest vote MAGA, who actively are against their own benefit. The stupidest are the fascists, are the Nazis, are the ICE agents, are the genociding Zionists. They're against the whole. They want to blow up the world so Jesus comes back or whatever. And they're against self. And not only that, their false model of the whole, their beliefs, and their savage addiction, as someone mentioned in chat earlier, or blind cave-like loyalty to that false model from their family clan, that false model taking the appearance of excellence as excellence, blinds them from their negative, distorted thinking and functioning, and the injustice and the indignity that they function towards mind when they lie and abuse, and their indignity towards the self. Or in the text, the ignorant follow their leader, and then blame him for whatever failures follow their leadership, his leadership. It keeps them from seeing their own crimes against the dignity of their fellow man. They plead innocent, and they're only doing their duty as a loyal believer. The cry of one's doing binds them from seeing themselves. This we call the unleashing of the tyranny of the mindless many. They are wonderful meditators on a shitty model. It has to exist as a stage of evolution, so it's not a blame game. It has to exist for there to be a part, not whole. And part and whole have to be different. And if it's a model, it has to also apply to people. And if we're here to learn, we have to be going through it ourselves as part of the learning process, that there are wholes and parts, meaning we will have to go through cognitive stages of being a part in opposition to a whole. But we don't have to be there forever. We can understand the nature of our problems, why they have to exist, so it's not a blame game, and what's needed for the next stage of our evolution, which is the only rational use of our thinking anyway, to revert on the model to get the excellence of our thinking, but also recognize that there is some self doing the thinking, so why don't you revert on the model or nature or know the self? Using our thinking to know the model or mind and the self. And you might as well do a third thing and use your thinking to solve our ignorance. But only so long as it gets in the way of those other two things. Which would just be, hey, in the same way we've just asked a series of questions to bring a understanding of the model of reality that accounts for the whole and parts, so it's right here in between. We could equally ask similar questions with a particular person, because this whole is for everyone. That's why it's a kind of learning that we're here to do, all of us. The meaning of our existence as going through these stages. But as we said, our personal models are different but not same, many but not one. So while we can all reflect in this way, use our mind to know the excellence of mind and even a higher excellence of the self, individually, we will all have our own personal beliefs. Our personal negative false belief of reality. I'm back. And God, I shaved. Holy crap on a Tuesday night in Tennessee. That was more shedding than, with mange. Wrong chat. Oh Lord, wrong chat. You have a hot date this Tuesday night. Do you have some sexy times in store for your lucky fellow? Come on. That's not fair.
Whore.
Hey, don't say that.
Oh, enough of this crap, you know?
Enough of that crap. Oh, you have a job interview tomorrow. Oh, that's less exciting.
You've been a bad little girl and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now.
That's a spanking for not going on a date. And that's not how I'm going to get the job either. Oh, hey.
I think it's awesome.
So equally, as we've been using our thinking to know the model, we can ask, and we've just gone through a step-by-step questions. We had a new chatter today. He had questions that came up. We didn't have to ask him anything about his personal beliefs. We didn't use any personal opinions. We didn't appeal to any authority figures. we only looked at physical appearances as a analogy to help someone more familiar with physical experiences understand the mind or turn his thinking around. New chatter's gone. New chatter said goodbye earlier. He said it was a lovely chat and he followed. Awaking tolerates my jester antics. I encourage it. I say,
Here we go.
and I say,
What if a chimp had a cell phone? Who would he call?
who would a chimp call?
The primary purpose of peanuts is not to murder, it's to eat for sustenance.
Maybe next time sing like a siren so that they stay. I am streaming again. Did you see much of my last music stream? I'm trialing different music setups. So I tried a new one yesterday. Did you catch much of it? Saw you at the start. But I'm gonna do another music stream after this stream. Would you like to hear a song? I'm trialing two different streaming setups, an acoustic setup and a classical setup that I'm going to play on my desk. I looked at the Twitch streamers and they all seem to play at their desk, which is interesting. I'm used to playing like behind a mic and stuff, so it's kind of weird, but I can get used to it. Anyway, I'll be streaming later on if you're around. No dates, I don't think, for a very long time until I move out. Oh, I see. So, with our new chatter, didn't have to talk about his beliefs at all. His beliefs came up, but so long as he was genuinely curious and was able to follow the thinking, and so long as our thinking followed the model of thinking and reflected on the model of thinking, and again, only using physical appearances as an analogy to move up, just like Sus and I talked about dreams the other day, all of the physical things in your dreams are not literal. They are either metaphors or similes. Similes about your state of mind, or metaphors that have a higher meaning, and your job is to drop the particulars and rise to the meaning. So too, we use physical appearances like fascists and, you know, Trump. Fucking Trump all the time. Get a new fascist. Come on. Humanity. Get a more interesting one. Or maybe none. Actually, let's do none.
Imagine people changing their positions and improving for the better.
For the better. But yeah, so we only use physical appearances like in dream analysis. I'm dating college right now. A whole college. Oh. Make sure you do a lot of yoga. A lot of stretching.
I don't know if you know this, but like weird dudes exist everywhere.
The Oracle has a message for you. Be careful. Don't know if you know this, but weird dudes exist everywhere. So be careful if you're dating a whole college. In dreams, we drop the physical appearances, or we recognize that there's just an analogy to understand the principle. The principle can then come back and explain the problems in our life, or come back and help us understand our spiritual development in our reading of the text, so long as you get a nose in the text. But also, you can even raise it to a higher level. That's that second level of use of thinking in a good way. This one up here, to know the spiritual meaning of your incarnation as a whole. So these two ways of thinking that we can do, dreams help you for both. Focusing on school, CNA, RN, psychiatric nurse. That'd be interesting. Now, if you have a qualification under your belt, you can share the logos of actually understanding human problems, and people will have to listen to you because you are wearing the right hat. It's one of the difficulties with philosophy. Very few people listen to me because I don't look like a monk. And I don't wear a big funny hat. So, but I have sound drops.
I think it's I don't know, whatever.
And I'm sweetie and I'm cool. Thank you very much. And I had one person at my music stream yesterday, so that was you. Smartest person I've met. Well, you haven't talked to my stuffy. My stuffy is the smartest. And the cutest. But hey, the only thing that makes me smart is simply just using my thinking to reflect on the model of thinking. And so long as you follow along, you're doing the same. And so long as you ask questions genuinely, then you're surfacing your unsuspected false beliefs, which underlies a negative belief of reality and a negative false belief and image of yourself being a small bean or a bad noodle. Which, as you raise them, you can keep them as other, and as we go through this reflection on the model of thinking, you can compare it to the self model of thinking, and you can rub the two together and see the difference, see that your false beliefs are defined simply as other than self. Wisdom is the self and other together, or mind. Freeing yourself from your ignorance that you have to have because you're born. If you didn't have ignorance, you wouldn't have to reincarnate to address something. That's the meaning of your reincarnation that dreams can point you to. So you can purify that ignorance by being honest in what comes up. As you said, hey, by the way, what about earlier you said something about judgment. I was told, so you could reflect, who told you never judge people? Because later on you realize, oh yeah, it is, being judicious is very important actually. What maybe I mean is what they meant was don't judge me. Oh. Don't use your mind and your thinking, so I can get away with pretending to be a knower, says our parents always, as a principle of being a human. So long as you're being honest about what comes up, you note it, you compare it as other to what is self in our reflection on the model, then you are just as smart as me or anybody who is using their thinking for the one way we really do use it, to perfect our thinking. Or second way also, the model even of that, the self. Plushie controls the streams. So whenever there's a sound drop that doesn't seem to be relevant,
absolutely gooped.
That's because the plushie did so. Oh yeah, and you have Kirby. I've got a Kirby down there too. There she is. But we could even go even further. So with our friend, we only use physical appearances as metaphors, which meant we didn't even have to go into his beliefs. But there'll come a stage where those beliefs will push back very hard, rejecting this use of the mind in the two ways we can use mind. Excellence of mind, or to know the self. In which case, we'll do the exact same thing. We'll say, hey, here are some questions. We're not going to go further than when you are, than other than when we are only going to wait till you agree before we take the next step. In other words, what are we doing? We're using the model of mind. We're going to ask a universal, apply to anyone, structure or order of parts or aspects of questions about your fake model of excellence, goodness, and truth. That's it. In doing so, anyone, we're all here, it's what we are supposed to do, will come to realize our life has been nothing other than this. Whoops. Nothing other than this. An attachment to physical appearances, causing our ignorance and human problems, repeating cycles of suffering, problems, which is nothing other than a thinking that rejects mind, undermines ourself, rejects a true model of mind while actually secretly, hypocritically, using a model of mind and thinking anyway, just called belief. It functions in the present. It will cause our easily predictable future or fate, but we can trace it back to our past to find the original appearances from which we inferred the whole of the model. So everything we went through with our friend who was new but could follow it because it's just true, we could apply equally to not the true model, but his false model. That's philosophical midwifery. You could say that, therefore, is the third thing we can use thinking for. The first thing is using our thinking to know the mind. That's philosophy, or Platonic, if you want to use a metaphor. Say Plato reached that. That's what he talked about. Or philosophy, because philosophia means love of wisdom. And while these two are ignorance, these two are wisdom. The second thing, go beyond Plato to reach what Socrates, hey, the self. The kind of knowing the self that doesn't have any parts, the kind of self-reflection or ousia that doesn't have any manyness, even more immediate than that, therefore. Because the self can't have parts if it experiences all the parts. Because that part that the self is will get in the way. If you've got a red filter, you can't see blue. If you've got a blue sunglasses on with blue lenses, you can't see yellow, you'll only see green. Therefore, there can't be any blueness in ourself. There can't be any qualities for our ability to see all of the qualities as a whole in wisdom, that kind of ousia or model, and even experience all of the many divisions or differences or manyness of all of the individual personal beliefs and problems that all humans have. They're all unique, they're all different, but they follow the same model. Meaning, the second kind of use of thinking is the excellence of knowing ourselves all at once in a unique kind of way where it doesn't have any parts. And this model that we've been using, we can use. So all of those duads we can use to distinguish the first excellence, whole of all parts, same of all difference, unlimited, but containing all the limits, like free, but like infinite, but completely self-contained. All of those pairs. Self-knowing itself through other. You can have fun with it. Equally so, you can use those pairs to understand the excellence that we're after as the ultimate. Whole, transcending parts. Same, can never be different. Out of time, that can never be soiled by participation in time, etc. Self that's not other. The one self. The true self or the good self. And might as well use both models to use as the guide in your reflections to remove the false model, help people ask questions so they can give to birth their own, use their own thinking to surface their own distorted thinking that underlines their problems, that can, therefore, you can help them see that they are carrying a false model of this and a false model of this. A false negative belief of reality and a false negative belief and image of the self. Because the model is beyond belief, it's knowing and understanding. And the model of self is beyond even that. So it can't be a belief or an image. So there's that third. You might as well use both those models to be a good bud, a good pal, a good chum. a good partner if you've got a girl with a good heart and good head. To help them individually address their ignorance. So that's the 2 things we can do. 3 if you want to help others along the way. And by the way, I guess we'll say 3 because your own beliefs will come up to get you to give up on this quest. There's only really 3 things we can do. Anything else is going to be a problem. And is a problem only because it rejects those 3 things. Rejects reality, rejects the whole, rejects the self, and therefore implies a rejection of the 3rd thing. There's only really 4 things we can do, you could say. Use our thinking to get the excellence by knowing the model of the thinking. Get the model of that, the self. Know the self, using your thinking to know the self. 3rd thing, use your thinking to remove the false image of the 2, based on a false belief of the 2. And the 4th thing you could do is be in rejection of that, but boo for that.
Disgusting.
Disgusting.
Okay, go ahead.
Isn't that interesting? There's only 2 things we can do. 3 if you want to help remove the problem of the 4th. But basically, it's how you use your thinking. This stuff just gets in the way. So you can do the 3rd thing to get rid of the stuff that gets in the way. But basically, 2 things. And now we have a model for how to do them. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that fascinating? Well, here's something special. Socrates says, you know who knows this better than you? You know who knows your false beliefs better than you? Who knows who can ask you how to ask you the questions better than you can to do those 3 things? You know who knows your past, your present, your future, knows the whole of this, and knows how your soul has been moving through multiple reincarnations to discover this very model that we've come to? You know who knows all that and is helping you? Your dream master, the maker of your dreams. Your dream maker. It will give you negative states of mind and metaphorical clues, the same way we've used them as analogies today about your problems. It will give you positive states to reflect that wisdom or excellence. And by the way, also that 2nd excellence, the clear, pure, qualityless knowing of the self level of excellence. That's how important dreams are. It's the best at this. Meaning it's what we need to guide ourselves, but it's also a guide for our own model of what it would be like to actually be there. And one more circle, to have both of all of this, and also to ourselves be functioning here. The activity of the self that knows the model and uses that to ask you questions about this model, to raise you to it or to go beyond it, to ask you questions about this, to purify it, and to help you reach this too. So we can say dreams is what it would be like once you're there. activity of the dream maker? The true self? If that's the activity there, because we've seen, hey, there's a model and activity in each level, and we've seen that this is the self that's not other. What kind of functioning of the self would it be? And by the way, we've used false, truth, and true, or many, oneness, one, or bad, goodness, good. So in other words, we could ask the question, is our dream maker, if it's functioning in here, is the activity of the dream maker here? Can you imagine? There it is here. Therefore, is that the activity of the true self? Is our dream maker therefore? So here's our question of the dream maker. Is the activity of the dream maker there, and is our dream maker, or the dream maker, if it's functioning in this way, the one self, the good self, or the true self? Is that the activity of the dream maker? Is that what it is? Well, now that we know there's only two things we can do, maybe a third if you want to reflect on your dreams. No, not really. Reflecting on the model of thinking, reflecting on the model of self, and our dreams is what we can use to do both, and get rid of anything else in the way. Is that interesting that you can only really use thinking for two things? And that's what you are, thinking. Or at least until you recognize the self that's doing it. Thus the importance of the second thing. Isn't that fucking interesting? Isn't it interesting?
Hey, I think it's awesome.
I think it's awesome.
Making ice cream's a good and courageous thing.
Allowing us to
Imagine people changing their positions and improving for the better.
change our positions and improve for the better by reflecting on the model of thinking and the model of self, both of which we do through dream analysis. That's what Socrates pointed to as the most significant thing: dreams. You won't be able to solve your problems, and you won't be able to perfect those two kinds of excellences unless you do dreams. You reflect on your dreams to get the messages and the dream maker itself, and that's where we are in the text. So we spent the last few episodes really highlighting the stakes of what we're doing now, how important this book is, how much of a banger it is, how important what we're going to be reading next in the book is, the importance of dreams and our dream maker. Been really, really nailing that down. Super, super cool. And that's what we'll be doing next time. So thank you for the new people who came in chat, the new chatters. As always, Twitch, YouTube, Discord, link below for the PDF and for a donation if you are able to and you would like to donate. It is appreciated very much. And I will see you in the next one where we're going to look at dreams. And oh my God, how important is that?